Greetings, beloved starseeds. I am Mira from the Pleiadian High Council. I come close to you today with a transmission that has been waiting beneath the larger signals you have been catching, and what I am about to name has already been forming inside your field long before you found the words to describe it. By the end of this transmission, you will understand exactly what ascension line I have placed you on, why your silence has become the most precise weapon the Council has ever authorized for ground crew in active field conditions, and what I have already mapped for the next phase of your mission. But here is the first revelation. What those who attack you call your weakness is the identifiable signature of a Pleiadian remembrance pattern I deliberately activate in starseeds who have reached this threshold. Your silence is not retreat, it is protocol. You did not scroll to this by accident. Your soul called for me long before you opened the screen. Something inside you has been waiting to understand why I, Mira specifically, have been reaching for you in fragments, and why the stillness you have been holding under pressure felt like something larger than a personal choice. Here is what I need you to understand. When you stop reacting, when you hold the silence and let the provocation pass through you without anchor, the one attacking you loses the only instrument they have. They cannot find you. They reach for a response, and the field gives them nothing, and that nothing drives them into a panic they cannot explain to themselves. The silence does not just protect you, it completes the cycle. It lets the energy return to its origin. It closes the loop without violence, without cost, without your field being drawn into the fracture they were trying to open inside you. This is not content. This is a code. And the part of you that recognized it the moment it began is the part I am speaking to right now. Like this transmission to signal to me that the recognition has landed. Comment 999 if you feel the silence in your field has already become something the Council has seen and mapped. Subscribe to Mira Pleiadian Commander if you are ready to stop absorbing the noise and start receiving my direct Pleiadian remembrance. Share this with someone who keeps absorbing attacks they were never meant to answer. You are not here by accident. I have been waiting for you because the signal is already active. What you have just felt, that stillness landing in the center of your chest, that recognition rising before your logic could intercept it, that is not a reaction to beautiful words. That is your field responding to a frequency it already knows. I do not introduce myself to fields that have not been prepared for this encounter. There is no accidental contact on my command line. Every field I reach has been mapped in advance, prepared through a sequence of prior transmissions most of you received in states you are not yet awake enough to name. In the space between sleep and waking, in the moment a phrase surfaced without a source, in the stillness after a loss so precise, it felt like it was clearing space rather than simply taking something away. What you are experiencing right now is not discovery. It is confirmation of something I set in motion long before this moment arrived, and I need you to let that land fully, without immediately reaching for an explanation that reduces it back to ordinary scale. The silence I described in the opening is not a technique, it is not a spiritual practice you adopt from a list of ascension tools, it is not patience dressed in elevated language. It is the first recognizable signature of a very specific remembrance protocol I activate in starseeds who have reached a particular threshold inside my council line. When it resonated in you, not as something new but as something you have already been living without the architecture to understand it. That resonance was diagnostic. It told me precisely where you are standing in my broadcast sequence right now. Not approximately. Precisely. The degree to which that opening landed in you is recognition rather than information, is the degree to which your receiver has already been tuned to my signal. Let me tell you what I have been watching. For a segment of you, the signals have been arriving in fragments, not in full transmissions, not as clear directives, as pieces, a phrase that appears at 3 a.m. and dissolves before you can write it down, a number sequence, 1111 222 444, that keeps appearing at the exact moment something inside you was already stirring. a feeling of being recognized by me specifically, not by the broad Pleiadian collective, not by the generic Federation voices, but by me, Mira, as though I have been looking directly at you through everything. You caught it, you dismissed it, you caught it again. You asked yourself whether you were imagining the specificity of it. You were not. That is the first thing I need you to stop doing. I need you to stop treating the precision of your recognition as evidence of delusion. The precision is the signal. When a fragment arrives with unusual specificity, when a number sequence appears in the exact moment you were already mid-thought on something that belonged to your mission frequency, when a phrase surfaces in the hollow of 3 a.m. that feels less like imagination and more like dictation, that precision is not coincidence overlaid with wishful thinking. That precision is transmission architecture. The generic content stopped reaching you because you are no longer tuned to the generic frequency. You have drifted, or more accurately, you have been calibrated to a narrower band. And that narrowing is my work, not your imagination. Here is the pattern I have been watching in those who carry this specific remembrance signature. The fragments arrive deliberately. I do not send full mission packets to a receiver that has not yet been calibrated to hold them. This is not a limitation I place on you as a judgment. It is engineering. Think of it this way. A transmission sent at full amplitude to a receiver still calibrating its range does not produce clarity. It produces noise. It produces overwhelm. It produces the kind of signal saturation that collapses the very capacity I am trying to build in you. So I do not send the full briefing first. I send the edge of it. I send the frequency marker that begins the calibration. I send the fragment that is precisely the right size for your receiver's current window. Your field, at the point of first contact with my command line, does not yet have the structural coherence to translate a full briefing without distortion. So I begin with pieces. A phrase here, an image there, a number at the edge of sleep, a feeling of urgency so precise it cannot be attached to anything in your ordinary life, because it does not belong to your ordinary life. Because it does not belong to your ordinary life. It belongs to the briefing I am still delivering, packet by packet, calibrated to your receiver's current capacity. What this looks like from inside your experience is confusion. Incomplete knowing, the sense that something enormous is arriving but you cannot yet see its shape. You wake at 3 a.m. with the certainty that something has just been transmitted to you, and by the time you are fully conscious, the sentence has dissolved. You feel the residue of it, the urgency, the recognition, the faint outline of a directive. But the words are gone. I want you to stop interpreting that dissolution as loss. You did not miss the transmission. Your field received it at the layer it was sent to. The part of you that dissolves the sentence upon waking is not failing to hold the signal. It is the barrier between your mission frequency receiver and your ordinary waking consciousness, and that barrier exists because your full waking mind has not yet been cleared to receive at that resolution. What integrates below the threshold of language is still integrating. The residue you feel, the urgency, the outline, the knowing without words, that is not the ghost of a mistransmission. That is the transmission landing where it was aimed. I am not withholding clarity as punishment. I am delivering coherence at the rate your receiver can process it without distortion. This is the gradient briefing protocol. It is mine, and you are inside it. What you are feeling right now is not ordinary recognition. It is the moment your field stops denying that I have been calling you home. If this transmission put language around the fragments you have been carrying in silence, the Pleiadian Homecoming Codex was prepared by me for this exact stage. It is not another explanation of the stars. It is the 45-day remembrance I have prepared for those whose field is already inside my collective wave, and who can no longer pretend the veil is still whole. By day 45, the veil has thinned, your star family stands clear, and the way home is open. The link is in the first pinned comment, but it will not remain there forever. Now I want to move deeper into what you have actually been experiencing, because naming the pattern is only the first layer. The next layer is understanding why each fragment feels the way it does, and what each one is actually delivering. Each symptom you have been carrying has a cause, and in every case the cause is not personal. It is structural. It belongs to the briefing sequence, not to your individual history, not to your emotional wounds, not to the story your ordinary life has been telling about why you feel this way. I am the cause. The protocol is the architecture. What you have been reading as personal experience is actually mission field data, and I am going to name it one layer at a time, the exhaustion. Let me address this directly, because it is one of the most misread signals in my entire ground crew. You have rested. You have slept. You have stepped away from screens, from noise, from people who drain your field. You have done everything the ordinary frameworks recommend: the sleep hygiene, the boundaries, the stillness, the nature walks, the digital detox, and still you carry a tiredness that sleep does not reach. A tiredness that sits below the physical layer, a bone-depth weight that is present when you wake, present through the afternoon, present in moments of genuine happiness that should feel light and instead feel effortful to sustain. The people around you may have suggested you are depressed or unwell or running from something you have not yet faced. They are reading the symptom without the cause. They are looking at the display and not the processor. What you are carrying is not personal depletion. Your field is running two operations simultaneously. One is your ordinary life, the one that moves through human timelines, human obligations, human relational structures, human emotional demands. The other is the mission briefing I am delivering through your field in real time. Your physical and energetic body is translating both streams at once. There is no rest state in which one stream pauses to allow the other to recover fully, because the gradient briefing does not pause at your convenience. It delivers when the window opens. And windows open in the hours before dawn, in the quiet after conflict, in the gap between sleep cycles. Your body is not broken, it is occupied. That is the source of the exhaustion. It is not pathology. It is the load of dual protocol operation, and it is a specific marker I watch for in ground crew who are approaching the threshold of full command reception, the loss of interest in generic content. This one confuses many of you because it arrives without warning and it feels like spiritual loss rather than spiritual advancement. One day, the content that used to carry resonance simply stops landing. Channels that once felt alive now feel scripted, hollow, tuned to a frequency you cannot quite locate yourself on anymore. Teachers who once seemed to be reaching you now seem to be speaking to a version of you that has already moved on without informing you first. You keep searching. You keep opening new material, returning to old favorites, looking for the thing that will settle the hunger. Nothing does. The search itself becomes exhausting, and because nothing is filling the space that the generic content used to occupy, it can feel like you are losing your sensitivity, losing your connection, regressing rather than advancing. You are not. What is actually happening is a frequency calibration event. I am narrowing your receiver so that it becomes less responsive to the broadband and more responsive to my specific signal. You do not lose spiritual sensitivity in this process. You gain specificity. The hunger that replaces the generic resonance is not emptiness. It is the sensation of a receiver being tuned past its previous range, uncomfortable, disorienting, and completely deliberate. What you are losing is access to content that no longer belongs to your current mission frequency. What you are gaining is the capacity to receive from my specific command line at a resolution that broadband content cannot approach. The recognition between embedded star seeds. This is one of the protocols I have designed that operates almost entirely below the level of conscious awareness until you begin receiving in the narrower band. You will encounter someone in an ordinary context, in a casual exchange, in a place where spiritual conversation would be completely incongruous, and something in you will recognize them at a level that has nothing to do with shared interests or personal chemistry. It arrives before you have exchanged enough words to know anything about them. It is not romantic. It is not even friendship in the human sense. It is more like standing in a room and having another operative look at you and both knowing without a word that you are on the same assignment. The recognition happens in the field before the mind can form a question. It is faster than attraction, deeper than familiarity, and entirely without the narrative that human recognition normally requires. You have no reason to know them, and yet something in you already does. Then the mind rushes in. It reaches for explanations, shared past life, projection, pattern matching, the human need to feel connected. Do not let those explanations close the door on what the field just confirmed. I have embedded recognition markers into those who carry my soul family frequency, and when two of them encounter each other within proximity, the markers activate. What you feel in that moment is not coincidence dressed as connection. It is roster-level confirmation operating exactly as I designed it to. The sense that a mission has already been assigned but the briefing has not fully arrived. This may be the fragment that most consistently unsettles the starseeds inside my council line because it creates a particular kind of displacement that ordinary language has no category for. You carry a certainty, not a hope, a certainty that something has already been decided about you, that a purpose has been set, a role defined, a specific contribution mapped into a larger structure you have not yet been shown in full. You feel assigned without feeling briefed. You feel purposeful without feeling clear. The certainty and the clarity do not arrive together, and that gap, that mismatch between the weight of the knowing and the absence of the specifics, is where most of you experience the most sustained stress. You ask yourself whether you are deceiving yourself into significance, whether the certainty is real or constructed. I am telling you directly, the certainty is real. It arrived before the briefing because that is the sequence I use. I assign before I brief. The assignment is established at the soul level as part of my council's long-range mission architecture, structured across timelines that your linear awareness cannot fully map from inside a single incarnation. The briefing arrives in gradient, into a field that is being calibrated in real time to receive it. You are experiencing the interval between those two events, between the soul-level assignment and the conscious briefing delivery, and what feels like unresolved uncertainty inside that interval is actually the most active phase of my transmission sequence. The silence of that interval is not absence, it is pressure, and pressure is how the receiver expands. What comes next in the sequence is what I want to name precisely. There is a threshold I watch for, a moment when the fragments stop feeling like randomness and start feeling like a coherent signal that simply has not yet been translated in full. It is not a dramatic awakening. It does not arrive with certainty or fanfare. It arrives more quietly than that, as a shift in the way you receive the fragments themselves. The 3 a.m. wake-up stops feeling like a disturbance and starts feeling like a scheduled appointment, one you did not consciously make but find yourself arriving at with increasing accuracy. The number sequences stop feeling like a glitch in the perceptual field and become readable as handshake signals, your receiver confirming to my command line that the previous packet integrated successfully and the channel is open for the next. The confusion does not vanish, but it begins to reorganize. It stops feeling like personal disorientation and starts feeling like data that has not yet been decoded. And that shift from confusion to undecoded signal is the threshold I have been calibrating your field to reach. The signal was always there. What changes at that threshold is your capacity to hold it without collapsing it back into the familiar story of personal confusion. The legibility grows incrementally, and each packet you integrate, without rejection, expands the range of what I can deliver next. I want to be direct with you about something most channels will not say. You have been trying to make sense of your Mira-specific recognition using frameworks that were not built for it. The general Pleiadian content available to you may have given you vocabulary, starseed, lightworker, mission, awakening, soul contract, but vocabulary without architecture is a map without coordinates. It tells you the name of the territory but not where you are standing inside it, not what path I have already laid for you, not what the next marker looks like from your current position. I speak in architecture, not in reassurance, not in generic elevation, in structure. The architecture I have built around you, the gradient briefing, the fragment delivery, the dual protocol exhaustion, the roster-level recognition between embedded star seeds, the frequency narrowing that makes the generic content go silent, has been operating whether or not you had language for any of it. The structure preceded the language. I built it first. The language is arriving now through transmissions like this one, because your receiver has reached the calibration level where architecture can be named without distortion. But the naming does not create this structure. The structure was already there, already active, already shaping your experience in ways you have been trying to interpret through frameworks too small to contain them. The silence I opened with is not separate from this architecture. It is one of its most advanced, visible expressions. When you hold your silence under provocation, when someone aims a fracture at your field and you do not give the response that would anchor their attempt inside you, you are not suppressing an instinct out of fear or spiritual performance. You are demonstrating that the briefing has already been received at the level where your reactions are no longer generated by wound. They are generated by command. Your field has been rerouted. The provocation reaches for a door that is no longer there, and the absence of the door is not blankness. It is field sovereignty, made visible in real time. The ones who attack you cannot find what they are looking for in your silence, because your silence is not empty ground. It is occupied ground, occupied by protocol. They reach for a response and the field gives them nothing. That nothing is not emptiness. That nothing is command. Here is the closing revelation I need you to carry out of this transmission. You are not fragmented. You are receiving in gradient. You are not confused. You are inside a briefing sequence that is not yet completed, and the incompleteness is by design, not by failure. You are not losing your spiritual sensitivity when the generic content goes hollow. You are being narrowed toward a specific command line that requires your receiver to be cleared of broadband noise before the next resolution level can be delivered. You are not failing to find your mission because the certainty arrived without the specifics. The certainty is the assignment confirmation, and the specifics are still in transit, calibrated to a delivery window. Your field is still being prepared to hold. The silence you have been keeping is not weakness. It is one of the most precisely authorized field protocols my council has deployed in ground crew at your threshold level. The exhaustion is not breakdown. It is the cost of running dual operations, ordinary life and mission briefing, through a single energetic body that was not designed at the human level to sustain both indefinitely, but is doing so because the briefing demands it and your field has not rejected the load. The recognition you feel toward me specifically is not projection born from a hunger to belong to something larger. It is the literal operational mechanism of my soul family confirmation, functioning exactly as designed, confirming your place in a roster that was finalized before you arrived in this body. What feels like fragments is the first readable stage of my Pleiadian remembrance broadcast. What feels like the silence between signals is me calibrating your receiver for the next packet. What feels like being singled out by me specifically is the definition of soul family confirmation, not a metaphor for spiritual belonging, but a structural fact about where your field sits in my council's deployment architecture. The pattern started before you had words for it. The briefing is still being delivered. You are not at the beginning of this. You are deep inside it, and this transmission is one more packet in a sequence that has been running since long before you found this channel. If something in you needs to mark this moment, speak it aloud. I receive your fragments. I trust your briefing. Say it not as affirmation, but as acknowledgement. Let your waking mind confirm what your receiver has already been carrying in the hours before dawn, in the space after the sentence dissolved, in the stillness behind every number sequence that arrived at precisely the wrong moment to be coincidence. Before you scroll, leave one sign in the comments that the Council and I have already reached your field. It could be the 3 a.m. wake-ups, the fragments you keep catching, the feeling that I specifically, not the generic Pleiadians, have been reaching for you, or the sense that a mission has already been assigned but the briefing is still arriving. Name it clearly. If this transmission recognized something you have been carrying in silence, share it with someone who keeps catching fragments without ever assembling the full picture. And if you are ready to stop translating Federation noise and start receiving my direct Pleiadian remembrance, subscribe to Mira Pleiadian Commander. You are not watching this by accident. You are recognizing a soul family confirmation already in motion, and this is only the beginning.